Hello, my name is Dr. George. Today I'm going to do a quick recording on my teaching philosophy. But before I go on to that, how did I develop a teaching philosophy? It's between utilizing my experience in the corporate world as a manager, as a trainer, my experience from my educational background, and my experience as an adjunct instructor teaching in various community colleges. You've already read a little. If those of you who know me, I'm a visual learner, but I've adapted to lecture, I've adapted to kinesthetic, and different learning styles since my students possess these a variety of styles. A good instructor should be able to utilize all different learning styles to connect with all his or her students. So I like using the concept maps. So we already read about my bio and everything else. I did that. We'll be going again. We'll be talking about my teaching philosophy. I do actually believe, and so I'll use my concept map as to just give a general overview of how I came up to my teaching philosophy over the years. Okay, uh, my teaching philosophy. I do actually in business. We do because I'm a business major, so I'm a practitioner. I tell the students that in business we're not theorists. We basically look at concepts and we try to implement them within a 6 month, maybe to a year window. So what you learn here in the school is basically something that you could be able to transfer over in the workforce by actually showing that you could do the skills. I also instruct my students that you'll learn concepts, vocabulary, and different business aspects. However, you have to know how to apply them. If you're working for me, just because you know how to, you know the definition of what are the 4 P's of marketing, or what is a market or human relations, just the concepts, but don't know how to apply them, you're really useless to me as a business person. I could just Google it or ask Alexa, what are the 4 P's? It'll save me $40,000 a year. So my philosophy is to tell you or teach you how to basically utilize what you've learned and able to apply it in real life application. Okay, so I believe in collaborative learning. Collaborative learning in business is all teamwork. Education or academics, we call it collaborative learning. Same concept, just a different spin on it. Okay, I believe that I should understand, like I mentioned earlier, students' methods for learning. And basically, I have a file folder, so I get to learn their names. I interact with them daily, not in their face, but in their space. So they put the name like a name tag. I either hand them stuff or come back. That's how I take attendance. But I always do some interaction with the students. This way, you get that personal touch. I have interview questions. I have them do a learning style survey. This way, I understand where in a majority of classes, and I explain how one should be able to interact depending on different learning style. I understand you have the Briggs and uh, uh, Myers, the different ways of interacting, but right now we're in an academic setting, so I just kind of throw those in there. Okay? Let's see, and I also talk about intelligent understanding how our social skills that one should have not only in the classroom but also in the business world. So it's transferable knowledge. We do team projects. In any class you take me for finance, not accounting. I have to know all the accounting classes. Finance, management, marketing, consumer behavior, strategic management. I tell them I'm a double major, management and marketing. I have to know how to manage an individual, manage the product, but I also have to know how to market or sell it. It's a lot easier for me as an instructor or as a manager to basically convince the individual that this is the right course of action. Why should one study? Okay, I look at the grading policies. I basically, if I click on this, my grading, there's more to this, but all my grades are on Blackboard. The current, they have the current grades, the points. I keep that up after they complete the task within 48 hours. Excuse me. They basically will have the grade. This way they could see where they're at. And I tell them I'm dyslexic, so I turn numbers around. Please check the grades. It's a good incentive for them to go in there. And the reason I tell them that is so they understand if they have any kind of accommodation or any kind of what they call invisible disabilities that one doesn't see, that it's okay. I understand that. I've had them, but what you have to do in business, you don't have any accommodation once you go in business. You basically have to be able to overcome them and become effective and how to use that accommodation to your advantage. Being dyslexic makes it easier for me when I was in process design to reorganization for the company, since I had to I had to see all the points. They had to make sense to me how they flow. And if something didn't flow, it's easy for me to pick up right away. And I take that as an advantage. I also tell them Einstein and all those other individuals were dyslexic. It's just a different way of aligning the right side with the left side, so you take in information and process it. Okay, I look at the previous student evaluation. I usually don't keep them. I'll look at them and see where I could adjust. I tell them in business, we basically have to adjust. What works in one class may not work in the other class, depending on the mixture of the classroom. And, that's real life. Okay, um, I I also tell them that I also take teaching and learning workshops, and I also, and that's a requirement in business, what we call professional development. You always will find another way. Even though if I teach a subject matter, I always learn. Or, oh man, I forgot about that. Learning is a continual process. After you finish this classroom or other classes, you have to adjust to the next class. You have to adjust in life. Yes, in business we call those learning organizations. They have to be flexible and able to take the internal environment and the external environment and mesh it and look at the strengths and weaknesses of both. Okay. Then these are just other classes that I teach. I just basically go in there on global and other ones. Okay, so real quickly in my teaching philosophy, even though I have the right, and I'll be ready to will look at that in my e-portfolio, I utilize concept maps, the right side of mine and the left side of mine. What I tell students is we both use both sides. Some are more creative, some are more logical. But to be a good, effective individual, you should be able to use both of them. I said, most of you, when you come into the classroom, you leave the creative side outside and you just come with the logical side. That's not what business. When I talk about creativity in my classroom, I says, what's creativity? Everyone thinks that you're an artist. You got to be an artist. I say creativity from a business perspective is that I think out of the box. I teach business math. Found a foundational math that's required before they take finance with me or accounting. And I said, there's a different way of approaching it. I may be a decimal type of person. You may be a fraction type of person. You may set up the problem a little bit different. That does not mean it's wrong. It's just basically you look at it from a different viewpoint. In a business, you try to look at everyone's other viewpoint. That's what collaborative learning does. It helps you see different viewpoints instead of just having that narrow vision. Okay. I have adult learners or younger or students right out of high school. I like teaching in the daytime and in the nighttime. I know some of my peers only like to teach with adults and don't want to deal with the younger or Z generations, which is coming up now after 2000, which nobody really knows how they're thinking, but they're looking at, from the research study I've been doing, they're more of a conservative type of an individual. So they really want to learn. Not that the other ones don't want to learn. I just got to prop them or motivate them a little bit more. But by teaching the younger generation or during the daytime, what would traditionally be more at a high school up to 20, 25-year-old student versus the returning adults, it gives me that balance between I could connect with them and I see where they're younger. And during the daytime, I say, these are the people you're working for. Someone like me who's hyper energetic, bouncing all off the walls. And then in the nighttime, I say, so the nighttime students, I able to tell them, here's the students or managers that you'll be working for. They're not going to be your age. They're going to be 10 years, 20 years older than you are. Don't tell them that you remind me of my daughter or my sister. Shh, give me a break to your manager. How do you respect them? You respect them. Because I teach management and marketing, okay? And collaborative, I look at a different learning style. Once in a while, I'll bring in music. As a consultant, I do consulting, and I have music that they told this orchestra music or boring or elevator music, what a lot of my daytime students say. But I tell them inside this music, there are subliminal messages. It basically says, I love to learn. Learning is great. And I always say, I throw it in there, George is a great instructor, so when you do your evaluation. I tease him, and he said, well, that's a bunch of whatever. I said, but that's part of it. You have to try different things in a classroom. You utilize all the senses. What I try to do is bring all the senses in and make it interesting. And I try to really focus on, I have here critical thinking. Critical thinking is don't just know the answers or just read the question. How do I, if I know the main concept, no matter how the problem is presented, I'm able to solve it. No different when I do the workshops or they do a project for me. All my classes, they all have to do a presentation in front of the class, either individual as a team. That's how I work. I believe in the learning by application. In some of my more advanced classes, I basically have them teach the subject matter, the chapter. They select a chapter. They have 20 minutes to go up there, and I add into it. They're supposed to pick up information that's current from articles. The biggest thing that I found out in my careers in teaching that students think, oh, that's just stuff that we learned here, and I'll never apply it. That is definitely wrong. So they'll pick an article, they'll see how it relates to the chapter, and then I basically expand on that. So now they say, hey, companies are using this. I said, what you've learned here is how you could identify things that other competitors or companies or individuals are doing, and how could I apply that to my business. That's what we call learning or organic organizations. Basically, you have two types of organizations. Mechanistics, like bureaucratic, like a robot you can't change. Most organizations are organic. Most people, we have to be organic as students. It's like a flower. If it's sunny, it's blossoming. If it's raining, it shrivels down. So when you look at that, that's basically a learning organization. You have to be organic and adaptive because the changes are out there. I believe in smart classrooms. I believe in smart classroom. That's what the most of the colleges are, smart classroom technology. I emphasize technology. I tell them I'm not a real techie guy. I'm a plug and play instructor. I plug and play. It doesn't work, plug and but you have to embrace the technology. In business, if you don't know technology, you're already behind. You're already behind. I'm looking for people who have some social media exposure, have to understand how to use different technology, that are not intimidated with technology. This is the world we live in, not only in college, but also in the business world. I embrace Blackboard. I make them do research. I try to use the smartphone, any kind of devices, turning point, clickers. That's a way of, for lack of better words, responding to the answer, and I embrace it. It doesn't work all the time in the classroom, but I say, hey, that's the way it works. So what went wrong? How do I make it? Don't be intimidated with it, okay? Let's see, the groups and the workshops. Okay, collaborative learning, we talked about that. Individual projects, they all do an individual project. Even in my online class, I tried to get them to do group work. Depends if it's an 8-week course. It's an intro class. Usually those are students who are coming into the college and they're not familiar with Blackboard or anything else, so I have to gear that for that group. More advanced, sometimes I'll teach a strategic management class. It means you've already had a variety of classes here. You understand that, and now I bring them into them. I also am learning. I'm trying to use Blackboard Collaborate, or how do I incorporate this software I'm using here is Camtasia. I could do editing. As you notice, this video is not edited. This is who I am, just like I am in the classroom. I can't change it, but this is where I am. Okay. And the grades and policy. Do you understand my grading policy? I basically, if you're late, I says in business everything is driven by due date. I really stress the due date, but I will give you a penalty if you turn in late. I want you to do the task at this level. Okay. I looked at the student evaluation. Okay. I think that's about it for my teaching philosophy. Real quick, when I come in the classroom, I introduce myself. I tell them where I was born, a little bit about myself, give them some information. I tell them in business, we don't discriminate. We don't care what color, size, race, creed you are, as long as you have a MasterCard, Visa, or cash. We love you all. And what I try to do is bring in, from my, since it's a business class, I tell them I'm going to bring in the business perspective to bring that balance. And I know there are a lot of people, different courses, and I try to bring in that conservative because most businesses are at a conservative viewpoint to bring that ideology that's from a business perspective or conservative perspective. So I don't push one ideology over another one. I try to find a balance. I stimulate. I tell them a lot of times I'll play the devil's advocate. You tell me this, I'll put the other side. Mine is for you to learn. I want students also to utilize critical thinking, team building, but also to utilize that intuitive, the creative side. Sometimes you just got that, I don't know what's wrong, but I got to go this way. That's what I want. So I said, intuition has to be not stifled, but has to be brought up. Because in business, a lot of times, the individuals who make it in business or in school have that intuitive. And it's okay to ask for help, come and talk to me. And that's my teaching philosophy. I have to write up, but this is in a nutshell. All right? So thank you again, and just till we talk again. Bye. Yeah, make sure. Okay, see. Oh, 16 minutes, not too bad. I know a lot of times with the teaching and learning, always tell me I gotta have my lectures under 15 minutes. It's just for as a nutshell, most of my lectures are a half an hour to an hour. I figured they could turn off the lecture, and then pick up just like we would in the classroom. And bye.